All right. If you are anything like me, you probably have been spending a little bit of your time these days thinking about what the world is going to be like 6 months from now or a year from now. Um, with all that's happening, it seems like the world is not going to go back to the way that it was, and so we wonder, what are things going to look like a year from now or 10 years from now? For historians like you and I, uh, this is a good thing for us to be thinking about. And when we look at the past, we can look at an event that happens and we can look at what caused it and what were some of the consequences of it, right? So historians 100 years from now or 200 years from now will be able to look at this pandemic and look at what caused it, what happened during it, so what we're living through right now, and then what were some of the impacts or the effects of this pandemic. Um, you this week, as you're learning at home, you're going to be looking at a series of events or a change that occurred in history, and you're going to be thinking about the causes of that change and the consequences of that change. Now, the change that you're going to be looking at is the growth and development of towns and cities during the late Middle Ages. So, if you can think all the way back to before Christmas break, which feels like years ago, we studied the feudal system, and if you remember, we learned about life on manors. Now, life on the manor was very simple for most people. Most of society worked on farms growing food, and you remember that the manor had a lord, and a church probably, and maybe a small little village with like a blacksmith and a couple little shops. Now, near the end of the Middle Ages, we see a movement of people away from manors toward bigger towns and cities. And so, as historians, we need to ask, why did that happen? Like, why did people move from the countryside into towns and cities? And what were some of the consequences? What were some of the things that happened because of that? So, this thinking skill, cause and consequence, um, you are like a police investigator in a way. You're sifting through evidence to determine the cause of events, um, and trying to decide, okay, what actually caused this to happen? And then what were some of the consequences? So if you look on this document here, which you're able to access on Teams, you can see this little cartoon. It's cause and effect, right? So we have this person standing up here, and he is going to jump, and it's going to cause this ball to shoot up, and we see the effect down here, right? The ball flies and hits him. That's a really simple picture of cause and effect. So we want to think, if this is the rise of towns, we want to think what actually caused this jump to occur, and what were some of the effects of that jump. So if you scroll down here, you'll see this. It says we want to know two things: what caused the rise of towns, and what were the consequences. So in order to kind of figure that out, you're going to read a section from the textbook. Now, don't worry, we have a PDF of it. And you might recognize a couple of these pages because we did look at a couple of them before Christmas, but that's okay. So you're going to read this document, and you're going to use this chart below to take detailed point form notes. So point form is not a paragraph. You're not writing necessarily in full sentences, but you're taking notes as you read. So the first page here says causes of the growth and development of towns. And the next page says consequences of the growth and development of towns. So I'm going to pause there for now, and you can watch the second video to get a sense of what you need to do in both of those boxes.